Thank you, everyone. I got mush mouth today. Mush mouth today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into the iConis podcast. I am Barry 3D, and today we are going to talk about the best heavy metal band ever, the one and only Cold Slither. Bam, 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 bam. Roll the intro. Hey everyone, once again, thank you for tuning in. This is the iConis podcast. Remember, like, subscribe, and share. Don't let the show be a secret. We can't have this show without all of you, so thank you all aboard for jumping onto this whole project of madness we like to do on the iConis podcast. So today, as we all know, I love music, and I'm always quoting music quotes or music bands, with Rod and Larry when we're doing our show. So before we get into that, big shout out to Larry Reclazato. Thank you for doing all the shorts on our channel. Please check out the shorts that we got uploaded right now. There's a lot more to come. Those are fast fan casts. We enjoy doing them. Thank you so much, Larry, for that. And speaking of Larry, you can find him at the Forgotten, Obscure, and Underrated Comic Characters. So check out that Facebook page. Remember, respect the rules, join, and you'll have interaction with thousands of people onto that whole project that is right there. Okay, cool. You can find me at barry3d.com. That's where I post everything from what I'm doing comedy-wise within Canada. Let's just put it that way. Be it if it's Montreal, Toronto, anywhere in between, or even outside of that. So check that out. And you can also find Rod at Mr. Rod C. You can find Rod at Mr. Rod C at all his socials, on Instagram, Twitch, and he's playing all over the place. So if you want, you can check him out on Twitch. You can check him out at a live radio show he does. He posts all that on his Instagram shows and live shows too. So there we go. And we also got to thank the one and only J Bird Digital Arts. Thank you, Mr. Jason Reese, for all the templates, all the stuff you do for us. And if you guys need something to be done, you can reach out to Jason Reese and tell him you heard about him on the iConis podcast, and he'll give you a discount on any work that needs to be done, be it if it's physical or digital. Okay. Now, as you saw from the opening, we are going to talk about who? We're talking about Cold Slither. Why Cold Slither? Why not? So first of all, I'm a G.I. Joe fan. Been that way from the cartoon. I've been that way from, as you've seen, past posts, even from the 70s where they had the 12 inches with a real beard and stuff like that. And I talk about how they can bring that back a little bit. Maybe I dive into another video. I've got some other ideas on that. So with Cold Slither, when you in G.I. Joe, you saw me do a whole extensive Enterprises where I talk about Tomax and Zaymot. Those are two of my favorite characters. And it's funny, all my favorite characters are the bad guys. So I'm a huge fan of Zartan when he was brought into the comic book. And then, of course, even how they retweaked his origins in different stories, right? So I liked him in the original. I liked Zartan in G.I. Joe Renegades. And how they kind of explain his powers. I wish he had more of a presence, in my opinion, in the G.I. Joe live-action movies. Even though he was there, I think I still wanted more Zartan. And of course, there's that 3-issue miniseries, The Dreadnoks, which shows what happens after the Dreadnoks kind of separate from Cobra, where everyone kind of goes their separate ways. And he turns the Dreadnoks into a small, group, into a worldwide organization, biker gang. Very similar to what we get like Hell's Angels or Rock Machine and so forth like that, and the Bandito. So if you're into all that bad boy stuff, there's many channels that cover that, and I like how they kind of play off of that. So we know back in 1985, it's almost like 20 years ago, G.I. Joe cartoon was running, and I believe it was in one of the later episodes, episode 51 or 52, they came up with an episode called Cold Slither, and the whole premise of it was the fiscal year. Very funny that Cobra kind of adheres to the fiscal year as a terrorist group. And they were transferring funds over, and it was Major Blood and Firefly that was doing that. And the truck got captured by G.I. Joe, and that goes all their money for the fiscal year. Pretty much, Cobra is broke. So they come up with this elaborate plan, because that's what they do back then in the 80s. How can we get more money? Sounds almost like Vince McMahon. It's like, Vince, you care what I say? If you watch that whole thing with Paul Heyman talking about Vince McMahon and how he roasted him, it's like, will it draw me money? Yeah, Vince will draw you money. Then just do it. Make me money. And that was Cobra Commander's pretty much mindset. We'll do whatever. Just make me money. Okay, I can't do a proper Cobra Commander. So that part there breaks down to them coming up with a whole elaborate plan to make music and put out this album, and they get Zartan, Torch, Buzzer, and Ripper to form a band called Cold Slither. Master Disguise puts it on. Very believable. He changes his voice. They use a computer, maybe AI, to back then come up with the lyrics, and then, along with Destro, and they put subliminal messages within the music to turn around, have a smash hit, and then do a tour, because in real life, artists make their money on tour and not from record sales. Okay, so they turn around, make that whole thing, and then they start blasting it on the airwaves, and everyone's heard the song Cold Slither, right? Heavy Metal Machine. Okay, and the lyrics break down on that. Now, during this whole madness, of course, G.I. Joe comes up with their whole thing, they thwart the plan, and Cobra's back to the drawing board, and here we are. Now, there's, of course, G.I. Joe, the cartoon in the 80s from Sunbro, has fans all over the world, for sure, and fans in different walks of life. You can find G.I. Joe fans that are doctors and lawyers, some kind of researcher or scientist, your local guy who's probably picking up your garbage or driving your bus, or someone doing data entry, like all walks of life. And there's no shame in that. It's just to show you how well it connected to everyone over the years. And everyone has their takeaways on it, right? You have your favorite characters like myself, and that's where it comes down to. So, Cold Slither. Now, 20 years later, you had a fan of the genre, of the music, and his name was Gus Rios, and he was part of a band called Gruesome, and himself, along with another person there, Geraldo from Reigning Phoenix Music, RPM. When they met like 20 years ago, Gus came in to do some work, and he saw, Geraldo with a G.I. Joe shirt, and he was like, hey man, I'm a fan, you're a fan, and they formed that friendship. Outside of G.I. Joe, but they both had that basis. Now, 20 years later, they had ideas to do a project, and Geraldo went up to Gus saying, hey, you know what? I want to do Cold Slither. I want to bring them back as a band and do more than one track. Gus, all on board, turned around and said, okay, I'm fine. So Gus turned around and he plays Zartan. And I know they did a whole thing at the San Diego Comic-Con where they came out in costume and they all played the characters. So you had Gus that was lead vocals and guitar, right? The character Ripper, he was played by Matt Harvey, who was also doing guitar. You had Torch, who was done by a real life person, Ross Sewage, and he was doing the bass. And then, of course, you had Andy Sealway, who was playing buzzer and doing the drums. So they come out, they do a whole live show. Now, people have their different opinions on it. I love the project so much so that you can see behind me that I have Cold Slither, the one-shot comic from Image, and I also have Cold Slither, the album. Right? My brother turned around and gifted that to me, and I was like, this is awesome. And then I had the conundrum. Do I open it or leave it closed, right? It's the music enthusiast in me versus the collector in me. The classic thing of a Gemini, battle of two sides. So I turned around and left it closed because my brother gave me a great idea. He goes, Barry, why don't you just look online to see if they have the album online? This way you can enjoy the music and then keep it closed as a collector. Okay, so I know he got me the orange one, I believe it is, that's in this jacket. And I go, no, it's not going to be there. And I went on Spotify. Boop, 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 boop. Sure enough, all the tracks are there on Spotify, even with another one that I don't see on this album unless it's a hidden track, which is called Cobra Claws for Christmas. So they even have a Christmas song. So when we break down there, of course, we know and the songs are full out crafted songs, forgive the glow for my light there, full out crafted songs. I will put a picture of that. And, for example, side A, Welcome to the Swamp. That's the intro. Then, of course, the main track's got to be Cold Slither, followed by Knock 'em Dread, Thunder Machine, Zartan's Revenge, Snakes on the Bayou. And then the B-side's got Torched, Under the Dreadnought Spell, Master of Disguise, The Ballad of Buzzer, and These Fluffies Are Fatal. Yes, they did. Now, when Spotify, you get the extra tracks, right? What I found there, to call Cobra Claws for Christmas. Here's my personal ones in this order. So my first and foremost favorite on this album is Thunder Machine. So Thunder Machine is, for me personally, I love that one, right? And they also take sound bites from the TV episodes. So in the episode, you'll hear it's like, hey, Zoltan, how long are we going to do this banger? And he replies, just until we get paid. And he drops the riff, right? So Thunder Machine is my personal first and foremost, followed by Cold Slither. And then, of course, the Ballad of Buzzer. And that kind of reaches into his history a little bit, where he was, if you go with the origin, where he was a teacher and then joins the Dreadnoughts after that. And he uses the line, I was once a man, which references G.I. Joe, the movie, where Cobra Commander gets turned from more of a humanoid into a snake. I was once a Okay, so this is where I'm on board with. Now, here's the other thing. I mean, like one-shot comic book, it kind of does a variant universe in G.I. Joe, and they've only done that one once as a two-parter where it was Steeler and some of the other members go to an alternate Earth. And the reason I remember Steeler is because he was feeling depressed about being on G.I. Joe and why they're fighting Cobra. And then they end up in a different dimension, an alternate universe, where Cobra won and G.I. Joe was still like captured and running underground. And then you find out that Steeler in that universe was married to Baroness. Bum, bum, bum. And he decides to stay there. So here is another version of that, I think, same universe where G.I. Joe lost, Cobra's running things, and Cold Slither actually broke up. They broke up, and then it's kind of a reunion tour of kind of, you know, get the band back together, like that MTV show, not Unsung, but you know what I mean. They bring all the cast members back to get them back one more time. So Zartan goes with an interviewer and he said, hey, let's go and meet them today where they're at, you know, and I believe Torch is at home and he's got a very normal life in the suburbs, you know, the Buzzer's gone back to being a teacher, right? It's very like, oh my gosh, okay. And then Zartan gets them back together and they do a reunion tour. Now, reunion tours are huge. They're big right now. That's what's making a lot of money because it brings back all that nostalgia. And people say, okay, you might laugh at the name Cold Slither. Hold up, right? I'm sitting here in my Guns N' Roses t-shirt, right? I love my classic Guns N' Roses. Okay, we're good. But let's go a little bit further. Kiss, that's right, went on a reunion tour. That seems to never end. Okay, good for us. So of course, some members are not there, and we understand that. But then let's look into it, right? If you had to go to a show, and this is how I like to play it off, and you walk into this place and you simply see who's on the venue. You're here, all right, man, who's on the venue? Oh, man, we got Rat. We got Scorpion. Oh, okay, cool. We got Motley Crue. All right, cool. We got Cold Slither. All right. The name fits that 80s hair band genre at the time. If you look at all your 80s hair bands back then, okay, I called out Rat. Like, yes, you would turn around and when you think twice about it, when I'm driving down the street and I get out of my car to go to work, people are like, hey, Barry, what album are you listening to? I walk by Straight Face and I'm like, Cold Slither. Like, oh yeah, cool. They don't know, most of them, what Cold Slither is. You might get the odd person going, is that something from G.I. Joe? And I'm like, uh-huh. And I just keep walking, but the rest of them are like, yeah. The lights are on, but nobody's home, right? Because they're not sure what Cold Slither is, and they're thinking, I'm being serious about it. So I like to kind of poke fun at that, people. So if you run into me on the street, and you hear me blasting music and I'm rocking out, most likely it's the Thunder Machine. Hopefully you don't catch me in traffic when I'm playing that. And I am going to tell you straight face, Cold Slither, and walk away, knowing that you don't probably know who I'm referencing. Now, the cool thing, not a cold thing, but maybe a bit of both, about the whole spot is everyone has their favorites, and I mean those are the breakdowns. But then there was cameos, which was funny to me back then, and even more so now in that G.I. Joe episode, right? So you had Muammar Gaddafi that was in that episode, okay? You had Fidel Castro that was in that episode. You had Ayatollah Khomeini was in that episode. These are real people in this episode. And they're not the nicest ones. So it makes sense they would work with Cobra. But it blows my mind that it'd be behind a band of, yeah, subliminal messages? Sure. And like, Barry, could that happen today? Shoot, we all listen to Milli Vanilli. All right, okay, all right then. All right, and if you didn't, you definitely know of them. Okay, there's some lip syncing going on there, and your favorite stars probably have lip synced a show here and there, right? Because when that was a whole big controversy. So I have to say, if you are a fan, right? And this is all brought back together because the G.I. Joe Classified line has been doing so good. It's kind of got a popularity back up and people more excited that they've kind of adding more to nostalgia and world building. So here's my thing. Don't trash the music. Just understand where it's coming from, enjoy it, and like me, add it to your collection. So if you have the G.I. Joe Classified figures of Cold Slither, you're almost there. If you got the one-shot comic book, you're almost there. If you got the album, you're pretty much there. If you got it on your phone, on your Spotify list, you are there. And if you've listened to Rat, Kiss, Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses, Scorpion, here I am. Okay, you're there. Let's have a little tongue-in-cheek moment and enjoy it for what it is. And my friends, thank you for very much for tuning in. And if you're a Dreadnought fan, then of course, go and check it out. And of course, what's the best thing to do? Go and pick up the book. Go down to your local comic book store and tell them you want a copy of certain things. Support the comic book store. Support the books that support the industry that gives us all this stuff to talk about. And keep in mind, we have a coffee page. We have a Patreon page. And on that note, my name is Barry 3D from the iConis podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in. And this whole world was started by a pencil, a piece of paper, and lots of imagination. Voila. Bye-bye. Dun, 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 dun. Here we go.